So recently a video popped up called Reasonable Questions for Anti SJWs. Now because I'm just starting out and I know that nobody who made the video had me in mind, I wasn't going to address or respond to this video in any way. However, I noticed while watching other people's response videos that there were two questions that tended to not be adequately addressed. Here's the first.
Why is trying and failing to debunk a study into sexual assault the number one priority for a rational thinker now? Does it maybe say something about your priorities?
Since he never actually references a specific study, there's no real way to know what he's talking about. But based on my amazing powers of deductive reasoning, I think it's safe to say that he's talking about the 1 in 5 women will be assaulted during their time in college. First off, the study has been thoroughly debunked. According to the Bureau of Justice Statistics, which uses crime data from the National Crime Victimization Survey, the sexual assault victimization rate for women in college is 6.1 per 1,000 women. Multiply that by 4 and you'll get 2.44% of college girls that will be assaulted during their time at university. By contrast, the victimization rate for women outside of college in the same age range is 7.6 per 100,000. So women in college are statistically safer than women in the same age range, not in university. Before you go and point out that rape is one of the most underreported crimes, remember I'm not using data from the Uniform Crime Report, I'm using data from the National Crime and Victimization Survey, often considered the gold standard for underreported crime. But you asked specifically why this was important, so I'm going to give you an answer to that. First, a little background about myself. I actually hold 2 degrees in criminal justice. One of the first things you learn when you study criminal justice is the difference between the perception of crime and the reality of crime. And more accurately, it's the difference between the misperception of crime and the reality of crime. People tend to believe that crime is worse than it actually is. For example, during the 1980s, there were a number of articles that claimed that babies born addicted to crack lost the part of themselves that made them human. And that's one of the reasons why there's such a disparity between crack and cocaine sentencing. In reality, babies born with fetal alcohol syndrome are actually far worse off medically than babies addicted to crack. But that misperception caused a dramatic intervention that we still have yet to completely undo. So the reason skeptics point out that your 1 in 5 number is bullshit is because having bad data in crime creates a lot of problems in society. And it's not like your numbers are even close, they're off by a factor of 10. And considering that the criminal justice system could ruin the lives of people, especially disadvantaged people that you pretend to care about, I think it would be important to you to go into these things with accurate information and measured responses. By the way, this is why people call you regressives, because instead of fighting against the tactics that created the inequality you're obsessed with, you're actually adopting them. Alright, so here's the second question that wasn't addressed.
Do you understand basic English syntax? Like, if I say this cat is pretty, I don't mean that all other cats aren't pretty. Like, do you really not get why saying all lives matter in response to Black Lives Matter is not only racially insensitive, but just patently ridiculous?
I don't disagree with your point about the phrase Black Lives Matter. It doesn't inherently say Black lives are superior. But your example is a terrible one. Typically when you compliment somebody as pretty or when you compliment something as pretty, you are singling it out and separating it from the rest of the group. What's the point of saying this cat is pretty when you think all cats are pretty? Do you understand syntax? Do you understand the English language? Also, did you ever think that choosing to be offended by all lives matter instead of co-opting it was a mistake? If I was you and I said Black Lives Matter and somebody said all lives matter, I would say yes, including Black lives, and then move on to discussing, police brutality against minorities. The thing that you say you care about more than policing people's language?
Does it maybe say something about your priorities?
Recently, I was on a podcast discussing presidential politics. If you want to check that out, the links are in the description, along with all my sources. Remember to like and subscribe and share. Follow me on the social medias. I'm the Actual Justice Warrior. Until next time.